guys? Welcome to the Xfl Dfs. We are live. A little bit of feedback there, Ellie. How you doing, man? What's going on with you? What's up, man?
Learning that I got to be careful about the audio feedback in real time again, right? But nothing too much, man. Just enjoying some of the NBA playoffs. And to all you degenerates who are taking time away from the game to hang out with us, we appreciate you.
I got a couple sweats going on right now. I got MLB, Toronto. I need Toronto to do something for me. I'm in like second place. NBA is doing okay. NHL not so much. But hey, I've got all the lineups submitted, so we're gonna sit here and talk live about this XFL Championship game, which is happening quite a while from now. To be honest, what is it? The 13th is a Saturday night, I believe. So we've got some time, but we just wanted to do a first look because I like to just think about things, let it ruminate a little bit and think about it over the course of the next week as we start to get more injury news. But look, let's talk briefly about last, what's today, Tuesday? So Saturday and Sunday. What jumped out to you, man? Like, I know we talked about it on the show, our breakdown show, our full show, that if Arlington wins, it's going to be kind of disappointing. It's going to be a little bit of a sour note on the season to have Arlington in the championship. But I changed my mind on that. I think that it's, we see it in the NFL all the time, like teams that are hot and go on a run in the playoffs. Like, that's incredible and it's good to watch. I think this team is not like the best team around, but with Luis Perez coming in, it's a good story. I really do think that this can be an interesting game, especially considering that like 2 weeks ago, like week 9, Luis Perez came out and threw for like over 350 yards and a couple touchdowns, and they took that to overtime. So this could be a pretty good game. So what were your thoughts on the weekend? We saw the Sea Dragons disappoint. We saw not so good football from some of these teams with the run and shoot type offenses. What were your thoughts on that weekend?
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me was just how concentrated the ownership was again. Like, I was expecting there to be a little bit more spread out. Luis Perez specifically, I just expected him to have a little bit more ownership than he did. And he didn't. And
no, 4%.
Right. That's just crazy. So you would have gotten massive leverage on the field just by playing him, man. And then if you stacked him, he had a good game. He did all right. Obviously, you had to get, what was it, Javante Payton or whatever. I think he was 7% owned. I didn't have much exposure to him, but I was still able to cash pretty nicely because, I played Luis Perez.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about on the show that if you could find that mid-range or low-price wide receiver from Arlington that goes off, you're going to be looking pretty good. My camera is unplugged. Hang on, sorry.
I thought you were getting a phone call or something.
No, we talked about that last week. What are your thoughts on the other game, this Arlington game, when it comes to Houston, man? Houston, what a disappointing end to the season. They didn't even try to give Silvers a shot. Talk about that for a minute while I'm fixing my camera.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of disappointing, man. I was hoping we get to see a little bit more Brandon Silvers. I was expecting his ownership to come in a little bit higher. I'm glad people didn't end up playing him because they would have lost money. But it's disappointing. I was having a lot of fun playing Burnett earlier in the season, and the offense was pretty explosive early on. So again, it was disappointing. But I really think Arlington's going to be able to make it a pretty competitive matchup with DC. What was that, first, maybe second overtime game or something along those lines earlier in the season. And then, Arlington, I lost my train of thought. But anyways, man, like, I'm excited for this matchup. It'll be interesting. Hopefully there's no injuries on the DC side of the ball. Still having some technical difficulties there, buddy.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, what the fuck's going on, dude? This is the first time we've used StreamYard in a while, and it's not looking too hot. All right. Anyways, so there we go. All right. At least look. You don't need to see my ugly face. It doesn't really matter as long as you can hear me. So let's briefly talk about where do you want to talk a little bit about some of these winning lineups that we saw from last week, just briefly. Let me just pop this up.
There we go. Yeah, we got Ben DiNucci, Abram Smith, Brandon Arcanado, Javante Payton, Ja'Cour Pearson, Jawan Green, and Renegades defense. Um, yeah, man. What is this? This is a big contest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. I can't see anything. You can see the screen right now or no?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. I can't see anything for whatever reason.
Okay.
But
Um,
what are your thoughts on this, man? Like Javante Payton in that? I mean, I had a couple. Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah. You had a couple with him,
I had a
with
couple with
Javante.
him. Yeah, I had a couple with him, and I just didn't get the other pieces right. But I ended up in like 11th, I think. And brother Phil, ended up in like 5th. I don't know if he's watching from our Discord. Did that pop up right now? Because my everything's frozen on
Now
my
you're
end.
still on Austin's.
All right. Well, anyways,
Oh, there we're on Brother Phil now.
okay, brother Phil, there he is. Had a pretty good lineup. We got really close. The one thing that really messed things up for me. Are you there, Ellie?
Yeah.
Okay. The one thing that really messed everything up for me is the Abram Smith getting a couple touchdowns vultured by our one of the new guys coming in that wasn't even on the slate, Cameron Harris.
Yeah.
That really hurt me bad. This week he's $1,000, so I think we're gonna have to talk about him here in a minute. What else jumped out to you before we just get into this other stuff here?
Yeah, I mean, Brother Phil, if you guys are in the Discord, you know he's a crazy son of a bitch. But I liked him playing a little bit of Bryson and Lean, you know, and then even went crazier and played Javante Payton in combination to that. So it worked out, right? Like the Payton was a great play, right? And I think that was just um, you
Was
know,
it?
you see the comment? You're
No,
not ugly, love mom.
oh, okay. I can't see anything. Can't see nothing.
No, but real quick, one thing I did want to point out here, right? Like, so one of the things that I did a little bit differently was I didn't get to Javante Bateman, but I paid down at quarterback by going to Luis Perez. Because of that, I was able to stick to kind of the mid-tier guys. I didn't necessarily have to punt anywhere. So that's where I was able to cash pretty significantly in a single entry or something like that. But when you guys are playing GPPs, that you know, that's the kind of lineup that you want, right? You got the stars and scrubs, you got Ben DiNucci up top, and stack in with Javante Payton and a couple other low-owned studs or
Yeah.
low-priced guys.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about the money line here. So it looks like this is a for this matchup. It's we got DC favored by 6 points. How do you feel about that? Does that seem pretty reasonable? It seems to me like this should be like a little bit. It's a little recency bias just from last week when it comes to the Renegades. People who saw that game are going to think the Renegades are a lot better than they are, and maybe Vegas is banking on that. I don't know. Like 6 points, we usually see DC like a lot heavier favorites. But hey, they played a few weeks ago and it was a close game.
Yeah, man. It was a close game. I think we lost to there again, buddy. But look, I think the line should probably be a touchdown, maybe a little bit more in DC's favor. They are the better team, and they lost one game on the season, which you know, ironically enough, was to the worst team in the league. So you know, I guess it ended up working out one way or another. But I do think Arlington can keep it competitive. If they do, Luis Perez is probably dominating and having a great game. But I do think, you know, probably taking
Hey,
Washington to end the points probably the way to go. Probably be a little bit more higher than 6.5.
all right, can you see me now?
Yes.
That's ridiculous. Sorry about that, guys. We're gonna get back on track here. I promise. Technology is always a thing. I had to unplug my camera. All right, so where do you want to go now, man? You want to look at this? Let's see. You want to look at this injury report that we just got out here?
Yeah.
Let me pull this up a little bit here. So let me zoom in. Yeah, you can see that. Okay, cool. So this just came out a few hours ago. Letty Brown is limited. Victor Bolden, hey, finally doing something here. He's limited. Rennell Hall, DMP, and Devion Smith is the biggest news here. You saw that ankle injury. He's limited. So we didn't get any injury report from DC. DC has 2 days off. They weren't practicing today, so we'll probably get something tomorrow and at least see like maybe where Teamu's at, or maybe see like I know Abram Smith was a little banged up there. We got to try to figure out where some of these guys are coming in. But what are your thoughts on this? I mean, Devion Smith limited, like it's hard to tell when you see these limited and DMPs because they're a little misleading in the XFL. I feel like they're just not totally accurate. Are you worried that Letty Brown's going to be out? I mean, what if we see both of these guys out? Like, what do we do?
Like honestly, I don't think anybody is going to sit out. I think if they're going to be able to play, they're going to play. If they're both out, then obviously it's going to open up some pretty interesting value. But I don't know. You might be better off just stacking up more DC if Arlington's down their top 2 running backs, you know?
At least my mom's watching. At least we have that going for us. So thanks, Mom. Shout out. All right. So let's just jump right in. This is going to be a pretty quick show. There's really not a whole lot to talk about, a week and a half or over a week and a half from now. We don't really have a lot of injury news, but we can definitely look at the, a little bit of building, a little bit of salaries here and try to find some interesting value. I think there's some value out there, like just building. It's not incredibly hard. It really isn't. All right. So let's start with quarterback. Teamu is 10.8. Luis Perez is 10K, and then you got De'Ara King at 7K. I know Kelly Bryant came in and got a little bit of run there. He's 7K. What are your thoughts here, man? Like, do you think that De'Ara King can get some extra snaps, maybe because Teamu being a little bit banged up? But look, Teamu at 10.8K. I know that Arlington has a pretty good defense, but he's like almost a must play. I feel like Luis Perez is kind of there too. I don't think you have to get too fancy with these quarterbacks. You could, because look, this is a showdown slate. So things are going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to think a little bit differently. And I think that there's a decent amount of edge for showdown for XFL. But like doing like a Teamu King or, Luis Perez, I wouldn't go with Kelly Bryant too, but like you can do a Teamu King like handcuff potentially. What are your thoughts on these quarterbacks' pricings here? I don't think that you have to avoid them at captain. I think you should probably embrace them at captain with the XFL. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think first of all, Jordan Ta'amu is probably going to be one of the chalkier captains, as he should be, just because he's got the rushing upside, right? He could end this game with 120 passing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Granted, De'Ara King could end the game with 12 passing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. So, I think both these guys are in play. I think you need to. Hey, good to see you, Darla. Well, kind of, I guess. Right. Jordan Ta'amu, he's going to be one of my top captain plays. Honestly, I like Luis Perez a lot too, right? I think both these guys are going to be must plays. I think one of the ways you get unique on this slate is you put Luis Perez at captain, and maybe you run it back with five DC players, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Go 1-5, go 2-4, right? Like I really think that might be the way to go. So, I think all 3 quarterbacks are in play. I don't think you go to Christian Slater or whatever the fuck his name was, Kelly Bryant. But.
So let's briefly look at this. They played in week 9, 26-28 in overtime. And look at some of these numbers for Luis Perez, man. 335. He only had 1 touchdown, but he threw for a lot of yards, 41 attempts. You look at Devion Smith, didn't really do much. They had as a team over 100 yards rushing, which is interesting. And Sal Cannella had almost 100 yards. Caleb Van Der Esch had the only receiving touchdown for them. The only reason I bring this up here is this is kind of when Luis Perez started to come around, and we started to see like, okay, he's not bad, man. Like, he was in a bad situation, and what a trade that they came up with. He started to really come on here later in the year, and we know for a fact that DC cannot stop the pass. The run is one thing, but they cannot stop the pass here. So do you think that they can do that again? Should we be targeting Perez again like this? Because I think he can have another good game, even if I don't think that they can win. I think it's possible that these guys can come out and throw for 350 yards again and maybe lose by a touchdown or something. But this game could be pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't know that there's too many, game scripts that I can come up with that Luis Perez isn't in the optimal lineup. But I guess there's a couple. DC just dominates some defense, right? And they give up 8 points or something. But even then, in that kind of a situation, right? If DC is up by 20 at halftime, what does that probably mean? Perez is going to be fucking throwing the ball. So,
Yeah.
look, man, I love Luis Perez. I think there's a good chance that he goes for over 300 again. I think he probably converts a few more touchdowns, probably 2 or 3 this time.
All right, let's go to running backs here. So Abram Smith is 10.6, Devion Smith 8,400, Letty Brown 66. Then you got Brian Harrion at 1,600, Cameron Harris at 1K, and Puka Williams at 1K. So Cameron Harris, nobody's going to play him. I mean, maybe they will because if they watched the game last week, or if they see the box score and they see that his average points per game are like super high, maybe he gets a bunch of ownership. But at 1K, he's playing that Reichwell Armstead role. But he's actually, he seemed to be getting some goal line carries. Now, I don't know how much that was chalked up to Abram Smith maybe being a little banged up. But, I mean, if Cameron Harris is the guy that's coming in goal line opportunities, and even if he's coming in with like De'Ara King or something, like at 1K, I think he's like a smash play because they don't have another running back on the roster. Puka Williams is listed as a running back. I don't know why they list him there. I think he got one snap at running back last week. We've learned over the past 2 weeks he's not playing running back. He's really barely playing offense at all. So that leaves Cameron Harris for a team that runs the ball a ton. You got to expect this dude at 1K to get a decent amount of ownership. At least I'm going to play him a ton. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. A 1K, what did he have? 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, he had two touchdowns.
And I think he had a conversion on one of them. So yeah, I mean, if he gets 2 or 3 attempts in the goal line, still ends up with 0 points, like he's still worth a play. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this running back position is really interesting. There's like a lot of dudes. Like we have to wait till injury news comes out because if Letty Brown is playing, I don't know that he's super interesting at 6,600.
Right.
Like maybe. But Devion Smith is the guy. But one thing you got to worry about with Devion Smith, it's kind of like, Brian Hill, where he's going to get hurt 3 times in a game. Like, he's going to go to the sideline. Your heart's going to drop because you got 70% Devion Smith. Oh, shit, is he out the rest of the game? And 2 drives later, he comes back. So if you want to avoid that, you could maybe play Letty Brown if he's active and maybe pivot off of Devion Smith, but it's just something to think about. Cameron Harris here at 1K is the guy I'm really looking into here. So wide receiver, 9,600 for Lucky Jackson, had another great game last week. Chris Blair, another great game, 8,200, and Josh Hammond, 7,600. Just as we thought. I mean, the pass catchers for Arlington, it's hard to decode and figure out exactly who's going to go off because there's plenty of them. And, last week we saw Javonte Payton go off, and he was dirt cheap. He had an incredible game. Can he replicate that? I mean, DC's watching tape on this. Like, I don't think they're going to be, Javonte Payton's going to be able to come out and have a massive game. What did he have, like 34 fantasy points or something like that? Yeah. So you could see, he's 6K now. You could see a lot of people chasing. I'm not going to just not play him. I'm going to play him, but I'm not going to be like, okay, this guy's the number 1 wide receiver because we don't really know that. We just don't. We haven't had enough body of work to know who really is the guy. I mean, Arcanado seems like the kind of guy that he'll probably get you the most targets, I feel like. And Lawan Winningham is this big play dude who, we saw that incredible catch there, the one-handed catch, one of the best catches of the year. Van Der Esch is another one of these dudes. There's just so many options. And then we haven't even mentioned Sal Cannella yet. So, I mean, obviously he's the number 1 guy to go to, but sometimes he has these duds. So what are you thinking for Arlington's pass catchers, man? We'll get into DC here in a second. But like I said, once again, with Showdown, you can get weird with it. And you could put one of these dudes at captain and maybe pair him up with Perez and then go 4 DC guys. What do you think?
So I think I'm gonna my strategy right now is probably gonna be heavily 1-5, 2-4. So that means it's gonna be a lot of Luis Perez and a running back, or probably Luis Perez and Sal Cannella. That way I don't really have to guess and nail this position correctly because these guys are priced awkwardly. 5,200 for Arcanado, 6K for Peyton, 6,400 for Bonds. Like, I'd rather just play Whittingham at 3,800. And even then, it may even just play a 1K kicker or something. You know what I mean? So take Luis Perez. If one of these guys gets a touchdown, you get the touchdown that way. If I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Brandon Arconado, just because again he's 5,200. It's still it's not quite as much as the other guys, but he's gonna get a couple targets. Other than that, I just don't feel strongly about the position.
Yeah, me neither. I think what you got to do, to me, I feel like putting Perez at captain is a good touch, and pair at least one of these guys with him in the flex. But like if I'm making rules, if I'm building, I probably want to get like a minimum of one of these pass catchers and include Sal Cannella in that. And that'll probably set you up for a lot of 4-2s or 2-4s with a lot of DC. Because as you'll see here in a minute, like we're not going to hand build. We're gonna dive into Fantasy Cruncher here and create some rules and mess around a little bit. You're gonna see it's like 90% 4-2s or 5-1s DC, and I don't think that that's really how we should play this at all, because I think a lot of people, that's just how it's going to go. Everybody's going to jam in Teamu, Abram Smith, Lucky Jackson, and one value dude, and they're going to put in Perez and some random dude from Arlington. I don't think that's a terrible strategy, but to me, I want to get more Arlington involved because I know that they can pass the ball. Even if I don't think they can win, I know that they can probably put up some decent PPR points. All right, so what are your thoughts on Lucky Jackson, Blair, Hammond here? I think there's a situation where all of these guys have like we said last week, all these guys have an opportunity to hit their ceiling. Like one dude is probably going to go off. It's just which guy. That's the hard part.
I think Jackson and Blair actually make for interesting captain plays. To be completely honest with you, we know Lucky Jackson's kind of the guy, right? He's going to get a decent amount of targets, decent amount of catches, but he could also fall off after the first quarter. That was the same game that Chris Blair went off though. So I think if you're getting Jordan Ta'amu, like everyone's going to have Ta'amu, Smith, and then whatever else they can get. Maybe you go Ta'amu and then two of these pass catchers because. I don't know, man. I think both these guys could have a big day, but I like Jackson, Blair. I'll probably just pay up instead of going to Hammond and just go up to Christian Blair or Chris Blair.
Yeah, maybe his name is Christian Blair. Who knows?
Yeah, man. Why? Christian Slater, is he in something that I've watched recently? What the fuck is going on here?
Christian Slater.
How did I go call Kelly Bryant Christian Slater?
I don't know, but that's an interesting nickname for him.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else to mention here? Victor Bolden could play
if he shows up 1K for sure. If not, I don't know, man.
I mean, the interesting thing about the slate is you're not stuck. You're really not stuck. Like if you play like Teamu a captain, you don't really have to punt that much, in my opinion, because you got guys. You got cheap dudes that are going to be on the field quite a bit. All right, so tight end. Look, there's a lot of tight end stuff to talk about here. Sal Cannella, 7,400. I think you have to get exposure to him. He could put up a dud. If you have a strong feeling about it, you could fade him. You could fade him in the flex, and then you could put him at captain just in case he has an absolute, bomb game. You do a 20 max, maybe you get 2 or 3 lineups with him at captain and fade him in the flex. It's not something I'm going to do. I'm most likely going to embrace him. He had a pretty good game against DC a few weeks ago, and I think he's boomer bust. So he's a risk, but he's also one of these guys that can get you 9 receptions and a touchdown. And on a showdown slate with a total that's not that high, what is it, 46.5? I mean, I guess that is high if you think about earlier in the year, but 48, 49 is what we've kind of been seeing in some of these higher scoring games. Luckily, we don't have to worry about weather for this game, which is nice because they're in the dome. So besides Sal Cannella, look, you have this, Alex Ellis, Riley Moore, McKinney, and Ethan Wolf. Chances are one of these guys is going to catch a touchdown, or at least get a couple opportunities. Now, the interesting thing we talked about in the breakdown show last week was I thought that the ceilings on these guys were pretty low. Like maybe it was like 10 points. Maybe they get a goal line touchdown and maybe another reception. But B. Riley Moore McKinney had a 40-yard reception or something. You had Alex Ellis. You had Ethan Wolf doing similar things. I think that these dudes, 2,800, 2,400, and 2,200, you probably want to get involved. And you probably want to try to force these guys in because they're probably not going to project well compared to some of these other guys at 1K that are probably going to project higher. So thoughts on these three DC tight ends here, man? I mean, it's the value's there, and we've been on these guys for a while, but now they're really starting to come through, and I think they're probably the best tight end core in the league, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And again, I think it's just a reasonable stack. I mean, you got Ta'amu, one of his receivers, Lucky or Chris Blair, and then you throw in Ethan Wolf for value, or one of these tight ends, might be able to still get to Abram Smith, right? So I like it, and if one of these guys comes up with 1.2 points, but you're still able to get those other studs, I definitely think it's a punt worth playing, especially in Showdown. And these guys are going to be less than 10% owned. I think B. Riley might be 15, 20 just because of that big flashy catch or whatever. But they're going to be low owned.
So let's talk about this now. Matt McCrane's 1K, Taylor Russolino 1K. Kickers, usually for NFL we're seeing 4,600, 44, 42. Around that range because they're kicking extra points. In this case, obviously with the XFL, if you're new to the XFL, there's no extra points. You got a 1-point conversion, 2-point conversion, a 3-point conversion. But we've seen with Russolino and Arlington, he's needed sometimes. They'll stall out in the red zone and he'll kick a 40-yarder. He'll kick even a 50-yarder. And you get a guy that kicks like 2 field goals, like maybe 8 fantasy points or 9 fantasy points at 1,000. Like, do I think that Cameron Harris or Puka Williams can get 8 or 9 fantasy points? Maybe. But it's possible that a guy like Russolino is going to be an interesting guy to throw in there. What do you think? I hate kickers. But with their price tags with the XFL, it makes them appealing at least at 1K.
Yeah, I like the kickers. Just the normal NFL rule. You don't need both, but one is definitely viable here. 1K, one of these guys comes up with 10, 11 points, absolutely potential. I mean, what if this is a 16-9 game and it's all 1 touchdown or a bunch of field goals? So it could absolutely happen, man. So I think I prefer Russolino. I think Arlington is more likely to just take points any chance that they can get because I'm not sure they think they should be here.
Yeah. And I mean, with Showdown, you really have to be very specific with telling a story with your lineups. So if you think it can hit the under and it could be a low scoring defensive game, maybe you throw a kicker and a defense in there with some running backs or something, or put a defense at captain. DC, they're 4,600, not a bad price. Renegades 4,200. Both these defenses are defenses that can take advantage of scoring points as far as defensive touchdowns, special team touchdowns. We saw Puka Williams. How many times did Puka Williams almost score last week? How many times did he almost score the week before? One of these times he's gonna hit it and he's gonna get you 6 fantasy points. I know we talked about this before, but it'd be nice if you give him 0.1 points for every X amount of return yards for these game-changing type plays. If they don't get in the end zone, they basically get no points for it, even though it's one of the biggest plays of the game. It's pretty ridiculous. But besides that, I mean, look, Defender's defense and Puka Williams stack on a Showdown slate, it's actually viable. And I think you can actually talk about that. So what are your thoughts on these defenses? I don't think you should ignore them. I mean, yes, defenders can give up points, and the Renegades actually have one of the top defenses in the league. So I think they're totally in play here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're both in play. I think it's the kicker rule, though. Again, I don't know if you need both, but you probably should have some exposure sprinkled into these guys. Even if this is a 28-21 game, it could easily have defensive touchdowns. Yeah, man, I expect some kind of sloppy play. There's going to be a bullshit turnover, and it's probably going to turn into a pick six. And like you said, Puka Williams, stack it up with a return man, get the double dink in the points. And maybe you just get real crazy. Go De'Aaron King, Abram Smith, Puka Williams, and the defense, and then Luis Perez, and then just fucking throw in the last spot. I don't know, man.
The interesting thing, I actually just realized this, that big Showdown hit I had earlier. That was DC versus Las Vegas. That was was Perez playing? I don't know if Perez was playing.
He was 70% owned. That's one of the reasons why you did well, because you faded him and
he benched him.
We had the bullshit with Brett Hundley. Yeah.
Yes, and Brett Hundley came in. It was the rain game. Yes. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. That's crazy. All right. So Ellie, do you want to crunch some lineups. We're not going to hand build right now, but let's crunch some lineups and see what happens. Let me just, without any settings at all, I'm just going to crunch and see what happens. So you could see. I mean, look at this. Defender's defense, 79%. I mean, we're going to do 150 lineups and see where this kind of, plays out here. But, I mean, the highest owned, the two highest owned guys for Arlington are Luis Perez at 40% and Taylor Russolino at 36%. When you have, at captain, it's Teamu, Abram Smith, defender's defense even, Lucky Jackson. This is, these projections, they just don't matter for the XFL, in my opinion, at all. You can almost make your own projections just by feeling in a game like this. So how can we get away from this craziness? Should we max out the amount of, should we boost projections? Should we max out the amount of dudes from DC that we can play? Like, where would you start here to kind of even this out a little bit?
Well, the first thing that I would do is, well, I guess I would probably put a minimum of 2 from each team just to make it easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So let me do min of 2 for Arlington. And let me see what happens. Offense versus offensive players versus defense. I'm gonna put that at like 4. Like, honestly, I just want to see kind of what happens. I don't want to limit this too much right now. Let me force in 2 Arlington guys and see what that does for us. Just starting, one step by one step. All right.
Yeah, we got to change the kicker projection. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we do. Hey, catch you later. Appreciate it, man. All right, so this does something to us, but now we're getting a ton of defense. We're getting a ton of kickers. So let me go in and change these kicker projections here.
Yeah, can you max 1 kicker too?
Yeah, we should do that. So let me put this to let me go down to 4.
Put 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah, I know that's specific, but that point per dollar is going to fuck up the optimizer.
Oh, well, here's why. Cameron Harris isn't getting a projection at all.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give him 5, realistically. And Puka, I'll give him 1.4 or something like that. Maybe he gets 1 catch in this game. Brian Harrion, I'm going to bring him down.
He should be 1 point. Can you put when was that last time Abram Smith hit 19? Can you put him at 17.9?
Yeah. And Devion Smith, I want to put Devion to 13. Now
let's put him at 6.5.
Yeah, Letty's a little too high here. Now let me go to quarterback. I think that Luis Perez, I'm going to put him at 16. Do you think that that's pretty?
Yeah.
Put him at 16. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. All right. So, and then we'll max. So let's go into advanced options. Let's go to group. Let's create some groups here.
Hey, real quick, go back to De'Aaron King before we get too far. Okay. Change him to change his projection to 11.41.
Okay, I should cap him though, right?
No, let him see. Let's see what happens first before you cap him.
Do you want me to bring Teamu down a little bit?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's go. Let's create a group. Let's go ahead and add the kickers here. Both kickers. Max at most 1. All right, and then I also I wouldn't do this I probably wouldn't do this if I was building, but let me actually, I just want to max defense here as well. So max to 1 defense for now. And I got to do captain as well. DST. Let me find them at captain. Renegades, captain. Defenders, captain. So at most 1. Do you think that that's fair?
Yeah.
I mean, look, like I said, if you think it's going to be a defensive struggle, but I don't want to get a million lineups with 2 defenses in them, at least for right now. Any other rules we should do, like max 1 tight end? Should we do?
Not yet. I think let's see what we've done, how it changes our exposures first.
Yeah. Look at that.
Jesus.
So this is a little bit more like what I want to see here. I think Perez is probably going to be 70+% owned. Teamu 85%.
Jesus,
Abram
we gotta
Smith
get
70.
defenders defense down, man.
Yeah. So let me bring defenders defense their projection down a little bit, like maybe like 9.7 or something.
Yeah, probably Renegades too. Probably 6.5, man. Those are a little bit high.
Yeah. Let's do it again. Crunching again. See what happens. Still getting a ton
And
of defenders.
to anybody watching, this is literally how we build. Like when I was building for NBA, man, like I was manually changing everyone's projections.
Well, and with XFL, man, I feel like you just have to.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
You really do, because these projections don't mean shit.
This
All
is a
right,
lot
so
better.
this is a lot better. So we're seeing Perez, we're seeing Abram Smith, Teamo. Now let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with Derek King. I don't hate that, dude. 18% Derek King in a showdown slate where he's probably going to be 6-7% owned, and all he needs is one rushing touchdown to really change it. I think it's possible. And look, Teamo's banged up, man. He could leave.
Can we see a couple lineups with him in it? I just want to see how it spit it out.
So Teamu, Smith, Derek King, defenders with Perez
That's a
and
badass
Russolino.
lineup, man.
Not bad. Teamu, it's got a lot of. Let me look over here. It's got 57% of these lineups have Teamu at captain, which is interesting. I think that's fucking great.
Yeah.
So now let me look at captain. We're getting Teamu at 43%. I don't hate that. I think you're going to need to have a lot of Teamu. I just think it's a little too much. Let me do this. Let's crunch. Let me do let me change my new uniques. Let me go to 2 uniques. So basically, if you're not familiar with that, each lineup is going to have 2 different players from the previous lineup that's built. It basically it's going to help spread your exposure out. I don't like using this a lot. I wouldn't go over 3 probably in a game like this, especially on Fantasy Cruncher. If I was using Saber Sim, it'd be a little bit different. But let's try it. Crunch. So we're seeing the exposure spread out just a little bit, like not as much Luis Perez. We're getting a lot of Teamu now at captain, or I'm sorry, just in general. Yep. So I think these exposures are not bad. Like, look, I'm not going to go 40% Cameron Harris. I would cap him, but you're starting to see that basically they're wanting one of these 1K dudes or one of these real cheap dudes in almost every lineup. You got Harris or Russolino. Let's see how many lineups they're in together. Only 4 lineups together. So if you look at this, Harris in 40% of the lineups and Russolino in 31%. I mean, that's a large chunk where you're getting at least one 1K dude. Yeah, I don't necessarily mind it. I'm trying to feel out where the field is going to be on this, if they're going to be going heavy. I don't think they would be going heavy in a situation like that, especially with a kicker. Now, I don't love Taylor Russolino at 31%. Like, we should probably cap him, right? What do you think? Like maybe 15, 17?
Honestly, I would just keep messing with the projections. I would just drop him down to 2.5 until you get to a better exposure.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Like 3.5 points, and he's still going off. So, oh yeah, that's the wrong dude. Which doesn't make sense to me because, like, wait, where was Matt McCrane? Were we getting a lot of Matt McCrane? So, for whatever reason, it's probably because we're forcing in 2 guys. And
it's prioritizing the high-priced DC guys.
Yeah, exactly. So let me...
Yeah, let's do a couple different things. Let's take Russolino down to 2. Go to Devion Smith again for me, please.
Yep.
Take him down to 11.5.
Okay.
And then can you go to wide receiver?
Yep.
Give Lucky Jackson like another 1.5, and then Christian Blair like 2.5, or get him up to like 13 points. I think that should fix a lot of it. Oh, Sal Cannella, my bad.
Yeah. So let's put Sal Cannella at like 9.8 or something.
I don't know, man. I think you put him at 12.
Fuck it, 12. All right, let's crunch again. Yeah, it's a lot of Cameron Harris, man.
Jesus Christ.
I don't hate it, though. Like, I wouldn't go that heavy with him, but, like, this is a team that wants to run the ball.
Good, man.
This is a team that wants to run the ball, and if you just plug Cameron Harris in, if he gets you like 6-7 fantasy points, like man, that might be all you need. Like, all right, so let's look at captain here. So Teamu, Perez are our two highest owned captains. Abram Smith, Canella. You got some defenders defense. This is a nice bunch of captains. What I would like to see is some more pass catchers from Arlington, because these pass catchers from Arlington are going to be like 3% owned in the captain, maybe like 1% owned. Like, yep. I know that Javonte Payton is probably going to be there because recency, but like if you put like Van Der Esch or Winningham, they're going to be 1% or less. And if they catch a touchdown and allow you not to have to punt with one of these $1,000 guys, that may make you different enough. What else would you do here?
Honestly, man, like I think I might bump Sal Cannella down just a little bit. But to your point, like even if we're trying to get a little bit more exposure to the Arlington wide receivers, I might just add another point to them each, and it'll drop Sal Cannella down to 35% or whatever, and then you'll get a few more of the other guys. We didn't see much of the tight ends, but again, that's because we were trying to toggle in the kicker settings. So, and even then, right? Like if we really think Cameron Harris is going to go get even 3.5, 4 points at 1K, it's still better than a 5 point from 2,600 tight end, unless you're playing both to pay up somewhere else. So
yeah. Well, here's what I want to do. I think this turns things into like a 3-3 type build. If you force in one of these pass catchers, at least one, and actually let me grab at captain as well, which they make it kind of weird here. Let me see. And also because Sal Cannella's his projection is so high, you're going to get some of him as well. So let me go Tyler Vaughn's. Let me get all these captains in here. Arcanado, Van Der Esch, Winningham. I think that's about it. So, we've got all these dudes, both their captain and their wide receiver flex positions, at least one. Well, let me crunch. Let's see if we get more 3-3s. Not really. Because probably Canella, 23%. So I don't hate. I probably bring Derek King down a little bit. This is where we're losing. We're losing Devion. We're losing running backs for Arlington. So that's interesting. We're gonna have to fix that. But look, you got now. I don't want that much Javonte Payton, but you got Javonte Payton. You got Tyler Vaughn's, Arcanado, and you're gonna have a little bit more of those guys in the captain spot as well. Look at this, Van Der Esch, Vaughn's. So if you just kind of massage it a little bit more, I right now, like I would just start over. That's probably where I would be because we've just messed with stuff so much. I think we did this mainly to just get an idea, like where we're at. But what jumps out to you? Like, it seems to me like, now I'm only using one projection source. It's early. It's almost a week and a half before the projections are going to change. So they don't really matter right now. But I think, generally speaking, we're going to see a lot of 4 or 5 man stacks for DC. You're going to see a lot of Teamu or Abram Smith at captain and Lucky Jackson. So I'm not saying you have to get away from that, but I feel like you can balance your lineups a little bit better by maybe, like you said, put Perez or a 1-5, put Perez at captain and run back other dudes in the flex from DC. So what jumps out to you, man? How are you going to be approaching it as we start to get closer?
I think I'm just going to stick with my confidence in Luis Perez and Arlington in general, man. I was shocked that he was 5% owned, and I'm just going to hope that the public continues to not play him, right? Like he's not going to be 5% owned again on a 1-game slate, obviously, but I think that his play has been better than kind of what people give him credit for. So I think. Running him at captain and him and Sal Cannella, bro. Sal Cannella might end up being my favorite captain. Maybe when we do the full breakdown, we'll have to go back to the slide, crown his ass. But Cannella, Perez, and then run it back with a bunch of DC. I just think people are going to go DC because they think that DC is going to whoop their ass.
And look, they very well could whoop their ass. But I'm pretty confident in Perez coming out and slinging the ball a lot. And this team is pretty balanced, though, in offense. You know, De'Veon Smith is going to get the rock. Like, even if he has a bad game, you could probably expect him to get like 70+ yards on the ground. So that's going to really allow for Perez to be able to go back and throw the ball. I mean, we saw it last week with Seattle. They did not use their running. Like, why would you bring in Phillip Lindsay off the street and then you don't use him? Like, they couldn't do anything because they had 5 wide receivers back, and they're just like, you guys aren't going to run the ball, you know.
Right.
So Arlington is a little bit more balanced, and I really do think that I think they got a shot in this game to at least put up some fantasy points. Now, maybe I'm a little too high on them, just because of this last performance, but we've seen it a few weeks in a row that they're showing life. This isn't the Kyle Sloter, and I mean they've gone through like 3 different quarterbacks at this point in the season, and those teams could not score. Like, they were worse than San Antonio at one point when it comes to offense. They've changed everything. They've turned it around. At minimum, you could expect Arlington to at least put up a decent amount of fantasy points, in my opinion. Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't turn into like a lot of real life points, but PPR matters, man. PPR matters for sure. All right. Anything else to send it off? We obviously are gonna have a real, full breakdown show. We're not gonna have any technical issues. We're not gonna have any issues like that. So keep an eye out for that. But we just wanted to talk briefly about the slate, as the pricing just came out. We got 20K up to first, I believe, right? For the big contest, we have a 222 back. There's a lot of contests out there, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of, I feel like there's going to be a decent amount of casuals that jump in, because this is going to be there's going to be commercials out for it. You might see a little bit more on the DraftKings website, so you might have a little bit of opportunity to take advantage of some people who don't know what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah, man.
I mean, we don't know what the hell we're doing either, I guess, at this point.
Hey, yeah, man. Hey, it's been working out though, right? The only thing that we have been doing is just not burying ourselves in one player, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think spreading ourselves out, especially with Showdown, and considering all these injuries that are coming up. I mean, it's brutal. All right. If you guys are watching this like the week of the championship, we probably are close to or have already put out the main show. I'll link that here, or I'll link it at the end card here. But we appreciate you guys, and we will see you in about a week or so. Take it easy.